Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome.
MindFreedom International.
MindFreedom International.
Armchair to Action.
Armchair to Action.
Today's 15th of August, 2021.
Today's the 15th of August, 2021.
In Korea, it's 6th of August.
And in Korea, it's the 16th of August.
We'll soon have our Korean friend on.
We'll soon have our Korean friend on. Is that her down there?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
She's waiting.
She's waiting.
Hi.
Hi.
We will be starting very soon.
We'll be starting very soon.
And this is Deborah, my wife, speak after me.
I'm Deborah. I'm his wife. I'm speaking after him.
And I'm David Oakes.
This is David Oakes.
And I'm a psychiatric survivor.
He's a psychiatric survivor.
We're talking from Eugene, Oregon.
We're talking from Eugene, Oregon.
And I'm also a mental health consumer.
Also, he's a mental health consumer.
And I'm a former director of MindFreedom.
And former director of
And
MindFreedom.
our first panelist, wow, he gives me incredible joy to do the show.
Is that what you said?
Incredible joy to introduce.
Oh, and our first panelist gives me incredible joy to introduce.
Yeah, a survivor of torture
A survivor of torture
and shock,
and shock,
forced shock,
forced shock,
who goes on, becomes an author,
who goes on and becomes an author,
a mental health provider,
a mental health provider, psychologist,
and now executive director of MindFreedom.
and now executive director of MindFreedom.
And Ron, you've done such a wonderful job.
And Ron, you've done such a wonderful job.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Thank you, David. You're going to fill me up, and my head's going to just get really big from that introduction. I love you, friend. You're the greatest.
I love you.
I love you.
And I welcome everybody that's here. It's so good to be with, I have to call you family. I mean, we've all, have reasons for being here, and they're powerful reasons, and we're going to fight for our rights. And that's what I see us doing as MindFreedom. At this particular point in time, I see us having three really important missions. The first one is to fight for people's rights so that people are not alone, because when they're alone, they can be taken advantage of. And even when we have family, the propaganda and all the bullshit that our family is getting, even if they're really trying their best to help and they have good intentions, they really don't know what they can do. My mother was an immigrant, and she used to think the doctor was God. She would, do anything. She had what she thought was a really disturbed, sick son who didn't develop into what she thought he would be. And doctor, help us. And whatever they decided to do, she didn't really have a way to challenge it. She never went to school. She really didn't speak much English, and she did the best she could. And I was very grateful that before she died, we reconciled really well. She understood what was going on, and I'm glad I had that opportunity. But most of the people that we get calls from don't have the opportunities. They're locked up, they're numbed out from the drugs they're taking. So I feel that MindFreedom, with all of you, and if we can get things going the way I see a vision for us, we can really start making a difference in individuals' lives, but also to kind of pick at the system and maybe break down a few of the parts. So this is, yeah.
Ron, what you feel are a couple of ways that would help people be active like you?
Ron, what do you think are a couple ways that would help for people to become active like you?
Well, this is part of the plan that we have right now that we've been working on now for probably 5 or 6 months. And that is to create regional networks across the country. And for those of you who are from out of the states, that you can do something similar in your country. But what we're doing right now is getting together with Centers for Independent Living, because we have a common need. They want to bring their people who are in congregate living centers, who have been institutionalized, they want to bring them back into the community. And that's what we want. There's no need for people to be in these large congregate settings where they just vegetate, they get drugged up. And with the proper supports, most people, probably 95% of people who are having emotional difficulties or struggling through an altered state, they can be supported. So right now, hi, Yvonne, you know something about what we're doing with SHIELD. Yvonne, who's chair of the Mental Health Subcommittee of NCIL, National Independent Living Center Council, has been working with me and Tom Olin, and we've called out 4 independent living centers that want to do this. And what that means is we have the resources of the independent living centers when we're working on somebody's rights, that we're going to work with them and helping them, and they're going to help us. Eventually, we're going to network with the Protection and Advocacy, the PAMIs, to have lawyers available in different parts of the country, because most of the CILs know lawyers in their community and can help us connect them with people whose rights are being violated.
Ron,
yeah,
share something from your past that helps motivate you and your Bassman story in your life.
Ron, if you could share something from your past that helped motivate you from your story in your life.
Yeah, I suppose so. An old friend of mine who worked with ADA Watch, who is back, his name is Jim Ward. We were just talking the other day, and he was saying, you know, I speak to a lot of groups, but I have what they call an invisible disability. He asked me, what do I speak about when I go to a group? And I said, you know, the major thing that I see is hope. You know, the sense of you can move through whatever it is if you have supports, and sometimes you can do it on your own too. So an example for me was when I was in my darkest place, when I had lost my memory, I had gained about 40, 50 pounds. I looked like a clown in clothes that didn't fit. I had one really good friend who would come by. I was sleeping on the couch in my parents' apartment, but they never believed. My friend would take me out, so I just didn't vegetate, and my parents would let me crash there. And the main thing was they had a belief that I wouldn't be that way. And I think having people you know who support you and believe in you is the biggest thing, and not letting people tell you what you can't do. So I guess, you know, that's the example I think of. I remember.
Ron, and
he says, I think you nailed it, Ron.
Okay.
You're right.
I've got, you know, so many stories now from when I was laid up to when I actually became a professional, and then I used to speak, and it's just, it's a pocket full of these stories to undo the belief that you're always going to be this way.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to talk for too long. David, if I can just say the 3 things that I feel like we can do.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think there is the support that we can give to people who are being forced to do things like take medication against their will. And then there's the public education part that we have with MindFreedom and the affiliates. I would like to see every region where we're working with people that we have a monthly talk at the library to educate the community on what's wrong with what we're doing right now. One of the most dangerous things that I see is that families, well-meaning families, I mean, there's some families that are not well-meaning, we all know that, but well-meaning families don't know where to turn, you know, and if we can help educate them, perhaps provide a support group for families, a support group for people who are going through this. And I feel like the perfect place for support groups right now and for family education would be in the CILs, the Centers for Independent Living, networking with them. The third thing that I wrote down and I don't want to forget. Oh, another thing that I think we can do is we can educate ourselves. And I think we at Central Office of MindFreedom can help with that, to get people on committees. You know, there's PAMIs in every state, protection and advocacy for individuals with mental illness. And they're not hard to get on. They're mandated for having family members and survivors on there. And we can influence them. So one of the things we'd be doing is collecting the names of lawyers that are rights-based that want to do this. We just did this for somebody who was being force medicated and getting shots in New York. We connected them with a lawyer who actually it's from Mental Hygiene's legal, I forget the title, but I've known the person who's headed that for many years, and he assigned a lawyer to him, and it looks pretty good. The lawyer is actually going to get him a psychiatrist that the court's going to pay for to testify, to reevaluate him. So there's a lot of things we can do to support people in the community. And I kind of live by the idea that when you help somebody else, you help yourself. You know, you get so much out of it. And I think we will all grow in doing this. Plus,
Ron, gosh, I'm so glad you're there. You're a wonderful leader.
God, thank you, Ron. And gosh, I'm so glad you're there. You're a wonderful leader.
thank you, David.
Hope.
In terms of
and,
hope
and supporting one another.
and supporting one
I
another.
mean, you and I know the next person is incredibly supportive in so many ways.
You and I know the next person is incredibly supportive in so many ways.
She's been president of a MFI board for many years.
She's been president of the MFI board for many years.
Celia Brown.
Celia Brown.
Thank you,
Celia.
David.
Celia.
Hi, and thank you, Deborah and Ron. I agree with everything that you've said, and we've also talked about it a lot, me and you. So I'm very excited.
We've been working together for perhaps 30 years.
I know, and I don't think I could go on without you and this movement. Seriously. So even if I don't talk to you enough, I know that you're out there, and that really promotes my healing. We're living in a very mixed up and crazy world right now. So to keep myself together, I talk to Ron, David, Sarah, all of you. I don't want to miss anybody's names, but I think what's disturbing to me now, and I've talked about this with Ron, is the messaging we're getting from pharmaceutical companies on infomercials, I think it's called. And there's one in particular, it's a Black man, he looks like a construction worker, who's having problems with tardive dyskinesia. So they came up and developed some kind of drug that supposedly is going to help with it. You know, helps the symptoms, but doesn't cure it. And I get so furious when I see it because, first of all, they're targeting our community, they're targeting the African American community, and this is just not the right kind of messaging. And what I'm wondering is, I know we all have a message, but the pharmaceutical companies, what I see just on commercials, have infiltrated the public, so it's no longer the mentally ill over here and we diagnose them and they're on hospitals, whatever. Now we're just going to go deep into the public, the undiagnosed people, and try to target them. And it's very scary. The anger helps me with activism because it makes me feel like, let me use my energy to do something. And I'm not saying take on the whole pharmaceutical industry, because I don't think I could do that. But I think that's what's needed now is a different, the message that we've always been giving that needs to get out there. No force shock, alternatives to the mental health system, which it's getting out to us because all of us know about the alternatives, but I just feel like we need some kind of campaign to get it out to people. I'm constantly educating my family saying, hey, this is not true what they're telling you on this info commercial. It's just not true. Because when you see this often enough on television, these messages, you start to believe them because they don't know that we're out there and we've been struggling with recovery and from the system and harmful treatment. They don't know where to go.
So
I
Celia,
have a question.
he has a question.
I totally agree with channeling anger.
I totally agree with you about channeling
Can
anger.
you share with folks something from your story in your past about helping you channel that anger?
Can you
Yes.
tell us something about your past that
Yes.
Like a story.
like a story that helped you channel your anger?
Yes. I was living in the 80s. I was living in supported housing. And one of my counselors said that they wanted me to go to this conference because they, in quotes, said I was high functioning. So I went to this conference in Troy, New York called Self-Help Vision. So here I met Howie the Harp, I met Ed Knight, Judy Chamberlain, and they were like talking about creating alternatives to the mental health system. This changed my whole life because I said to Judy, well, who's allowing you to do this? She said, she said, no one, we're just doing it. And just where I was coming from, I was told what to do all the time. And I just felt very liberated. So I came back to my residence and I created a support group with staff and with residents. Eventually, they saw that I was trying to empower people, and so they stopped it from happening. But we had it outside of the residence. We had a place where we would go, and we would just give each other mutual support. I was just so inspired by that conference. It just changed my life because I knew that it was something different. It had to be something different than what I'm in. This can't be it for my life. And it wasn't.
I love that story, Celia.
I love that story, Celia.
And
Thank you.
like I said before, you are one of the warmest, most loving people I know.
And he says,
Thank
like
you.
I said before, you're one of the most warmest and loving people I know.
And
Me too. I agree.
And
Thank you, Deborah and David.
wonderful. And so Sarah, I know Sarah Smith is our next panelist.
Great. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
Thank you, Celia. So
Sarah.
next is Sarah Smith.
Family
Okay.
member that definitely seized the day
A family member that definitely sees the day.
and give permission to everybody for revolution.
and gives permission to everybody for revolution.
Welcome, Sarah.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege to work for MindFreedom, and it's a privilege to be here today. And thank you for organizing this.
Go, Sarah, after I fell, I think you helped bridge MindFreedom to exist now.
And Sarah, after I fell, I think you bridged MindFreedom to success till now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a team effort for sure.
You worked so hard.
What inspired me to become a part of this movement, which I became involved about 10 years ago, was observing my daughter being tortured in the mental health system and not being able to do anything about it because she was not a minor and I had no say-so in her care and treatment. And she was institutionalized and forcibly drugged and restrained. And she still has nightmares about that. She's been living at home now for 3 years and things are better, but it's an ongoing effort. So the thing from my past that I think really helps me is the feeling of empowerment in organizing with other activists for a cause. And one of the things that came to mind recently, I've been pondering about something that I did about 30 years ago, which was I was a part of a mass arrest, a mass action at Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is a nuclear facility that has intercontinental ballistic missile silos in California, and they were routinely test firing test missiles in the Pacific, and people in Pacific Islanders and the Marshall Islanders they had a lot of cases of pediatric cancer, and it seemed hopeless to take on the United States government in the middle of a Cold War with Russia. But enough people got involved, and there were mass arrests and there were mass arraignments and mass jailings, and they stopped the test firing. And later, I met David because of a different set of environmental justice actions. We were blockading illegal deforestation of a pristine watershed here in Oregon. And that's where I met David, because David and I were both eco activists. And we didn't even know about global warming back then. We just were trying to protect a watershed. Now it seems like even more appropriate. But so I bring a history of knowing that there's hope when people in enough numbers get together and organize, even against overwhelming odds. So I have a lot of hope in this movement that enough psychiatric survivors and family members and allies will be able to get together and organize and bring about the much needed paradigm shift from a really oppressive mental health system to a human rights based mental health system. I have a lot of hope for that. That's what inspires me every day.
So, Sarah, what one or two tools would you recommend for folks to be more active?
So Sarah, what are one or two more tools you would recommend to folks to become more active?
I think courage is the number one thing we need. As a parent, I got off track because of fear of what would happen to my daughter. And fear is really the killer of activism. And so somehow we have to give each other enough mutual support that we can overcome our fears and display a lot of courage, the courage to rise up and resist oppression. I guess that would be the tool I would.
Well, you sure are a role model of that.
Well, you sure are a role model of that.
Sarah, you can help welcome another mom who has just finished a 48-day fast for her son.
So Sarah, you can help introduce another mother who has just finished a 40-day fast for her son.
So Sarah, go ahead and welcome Cindi Fisher.
So Sarah, go ahead and welcome in Cindi Fisher.
Welcome, my friend, my spirit sister, Cindi Fisher. We've known each other for about as long as I've been involved in this movement, and she never ceases to amaze me and inspire me. And I'm just so, we're blessed that Cindi can be here to talk about her experience today.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Go ahead, Cindi.
Yeah, thank you so much for MindFreedom. They have been an amazing ally and support throughout my career as an activist and a mother. Matter of fact, MindFreedom launched me into what my organization used to be very active. It was called the Moms Movement, the movement of mothers standing up together. And it was a radio show where they brought the moms together and brought some of us down there. That launched me into this. Right now, currently, I have a son that is a psychiatric prisoner at Western State Hospital in the state of Washington. This is an unusual hospital in that it is so dangerous that the federal government couldn't even keep playing the games and ignoring its dangerousness. And after giving it really many years, but the latest was in 2000, I think it was 16, it became so clear to the public that this was a dangerous and understaffed and just a dangerous hospital, that they were given 18 months to get their act together. And in 18 months, the federal government, Medicare, came back and said, no, it's still too dangerous. And they defunded them $53 million. That was their annual budget from Medicare, and decertified them. So they don't even qualify for JC, the Joint Commission, who has lower standards, as most of you know, than most state hospitals. Most state hospitals come under the JC because you can get away with more and you don't have to report your mistakes. So we have the most dangerous hospital
Cindy,
by federal standards in 5 states.
yes,
And my son's locked up
Cindy.
in there and steadily sending people there.
may I ask you a question?
He wanted to
Sure.
ask you a question, Cindi.
What are 2 ways you're motivated for decades? You've been so motivated.
So what are one of the 2 ways you're motivated? You've been motivated for
Yeah.
decades.
Can you share that with folks?
Can you share that with
What are
folks?
1 or 2 ways?
What are 1 or 2 ways?
That I stay motivated.
Yeah, that
Um,
motivates you. Obviously, the love for your sons and our daughter.
Obviously, your love for your son is one.
But
I think it's
Yeah.
also my love and my need, my human need for justice and compassion and caring. It's like that's just who we are when we haven't been oppressed and harmed. We have this natural affinity. And so how people fight might look different, but if you are in touch with your humanity, you've got to be doing something in this society to bring about change. And it just so happens that my path has been dictated by finding the underbelly from what happened to my son. You know, once you see the underbelly, you can't go back to sleep. You really can't. Because if you do, you're going to end up being swallowed too. So I have no choice in this. I believe that we deserve and we are going to have a world where everybody wins. And I have to keep working for that. And especially when my son's very existence is threatened, then I go the extra mile. I have 40 days, 14 pounds in front of the hospital. By the way, I still have, I'm hoping that folks will tune in for 2-minute activism Tuesdays, 2-minute Tuesdays. Every Tuesday I'll be in front of the state hospital.
As you know, Deborah and I, it might not be a lot, but we'll fast 1 day a month starting the last Sunday of the month.
So even though it's not much, he said, we're gonna start, we'll do a fast one day,
Last Sunday. of
last
the
Sunday of each month.
And we hope others join in. Think, Cindi, what? Tell me something from your story over the years that gave you a spark. What's your best, my friend?
Tell me something from your past that gave you that spark.
I've never narrowed it down. I think what brought me into the hunger strike world, I call it a hunger strike because I feel like I get to define what hunger strike is, and I didn't eat any solid foods. I joined Code Pink during the Iraq War, and we started on July 4th, and I stood in front of the Capitol with them, and I did a 40 hunger strike with them to bring the troops home. So I knew it was possible. And then here it is with my son. I had to give him hope because once they blocked his discharge, that's just a horror story. How
Cindi,
disillusioned and how much.
I never knew that the peace movement helped to inspire you.
I never knew that the peace movement helped to inspire you.
Intersectionality is everybody.
Intersectionality is everybody.
Everybody who's marginalized and disempowered.
Everybody who's marginalized and disempowered.
MAD.
MAD. You're so good.
So all the way from here, I love this.
From all the way from
Korea.
Korea.
We have the newest sponsor group for MindFreedom.
We have the newest sponsor group for MindFreedom.
Mad Pride Seoul from Korea.
Mad Pride Seoul from Korea.
Where it's now Monday morning.
Where it's now Monday morning.
Welcome, and please pronounce your first name because we don't have to right.
And please pronounce your first name so that we can get it right.
Okay, my name is Daeryun Im. Thank you for inviting me. It's really honor, and I'm really glad to see you all. I can speak English a little bit, but my English is not very fluent enough. So
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
I have translator Michelle. So she could also speak in this Zoom.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm her translator. It's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. Nice to meet
So
you.
now, can she say her name again and now speak in Korean?
If she could say her name again, and then she could speak in Korean if she wants.
이름을 벌써 말해주시고 그 다음에 한국.
여기까지는 알아들었어요. 네, 저는 대륜임이고요. 원래 한국어로는 임이 먼저 와서 임대륜이에요. 저는 I live in Seoul, Korea. Currently, I live with schizophrenia. 저는 그 안티카에서 매드프라이드 서울을 하면서 예술 활동을 해가지고 올해 배우로서 신진 예술인으로 등록이 되었어요.
So I work in Antica, which is a movement for mental health rights, and I work as an artist there.
저는 예전부터 정신건강 분야나 문화예술 분야에서 활동하고 싶었는데 제가 지금 몸담고 있는 것은 그 두 가지를 아우르는 교집합에 있는 분야예요.
I'm working in the field. I always wanted to work in the field of mental health and art, but right now I'm doing work that composes of both.
그래서 저는 올해 공공예술 프로젝트 모두를 위한 자유에 참여해요. Freedom for All.
This year I am participating in the Freedom for Mental Health Patients.
그래서 매드 연극제와 매드 영화제와 매드 프라이드를 준비하고 있어요.
So I am preparing for a festival cinema that focuses on mental health, so MadFreedom Cinema, and I'm also preparing for other projects as well.
매드 연극제는 어제로 이미 끝났는데요.
So yesterday, the MadFreedom Cinema was finished.
다양한 정신적 장애 유발 요인 및 사회 구조로 문제로 외면받는 사회적 취약 당사자의 이야기의 발굴을 논의하는 예술의 장을 만들고자 하는 목적을 가지고 있는데요. 이게 약간 문어체라 미셸이 번역하기 힘들지 않을까 걱정이 되네요.
No worries. This festival focuses on how different causes. Oh, thank you. This MadFreedom Cinema focuses on different causes of mental health conditions and how the society neglects people with mental illnesses, and how we can discuss more about how we can discuss more about how we can incorporate art into activism.
What helps your members be active in MadFreedom?
What helps your members be active in MadFreedom?
MadFreedom에서 멤버들이 굉장히 활동적이게 할 수 있는 이유는 무엇인가요?
한국엔 in Korea, well, I saw the chatting, but my reading speed is slow, so I can read very fast. So I'm a little 떨리네요. Tremble?
He's a little bit nervous, but
Nervous. 한국에서는 그런 매드 프라이드가 되게 늦게 시작이 됐고, 근데 다들 기다려오고 있었던 것 같아요. 왜냐면 인터넷으로 검색하면은 외국에서 매드 프라이드를 한다는 걸 알 수 있잖아요.
Here in Korea, MadFreedom is rare, but I think people have been waiting for it since you can search on the internet about MadFreedom.
당사자의 언어와 관점으로 이야기를 하려는 욕구가 있었고, 그게 축제를 통해서 되게 활발하게 일어날 수 있어서 저희가 많이 기다렸던 행사 같아요.
Through the language of people who have mental health conditions, this can lead to festivals, and I think this is why people were so excited to be involved in it.
Can you tell us about your event in October?
Can you tell us about your event in October?
Yes,
Okay.
October 10, MadFreedom Seoul will be held. Third MadFreedom Seoul, and October 8 and 9, MadFilm Festival will be held. In this year, because of COVID-19, we will use the metaverse, the online space. So we we do the meeting every week, and we are thinking about slogan and concept and what message should be delivered to the public. So I want you to invite to our metaverse MedPride.
We will, and I want to welcome you to MindFreedom,
We will, and I want to welcome you to MindFreedom,
our newest sponsor group.
our newest sponsor group.
제가 매드프라에 오신 거를 환영하고 싶습니다.
감사합니다. Thank you.
Welcome. So, and Michelle, thank you for translating.
Welcome, and thank you, Michelle, for translating.
Where are you located, Michelle?
Where are you located, Michelle?
I'm located in Yongin, South Korea.
Oh, thank you so much. That is absolutely key.
Thank you so much. That's absolutely key.
I mean, many people have trouble understanding me.
I mean, many people have trouble understanding him.
So Deborah repeats me.
So I repeat him.
But
I don't do a good job sometimes, but
translating is crucial.
translating is crucial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our
No
next
problem. Thank you so much.
panelist is an amazing bridge builder.
Our next panelist is an amazing bridge builder.
When times get tough, I turn to this subcommittee Yvonne chairs.
When times get tough, I turn to this subcommittee that Yvonne chairs.
Welcome, Yvonne.
Welcome, Yvonne
Smith.
Smith. Yvonne Smith.
Well, thank you very much, David. I want to echo some things that were already said. Celia had talked about the advertisements. They are very dangerous because people are trying to solve problems that are not really problems by going to doctors and asking for these medications. And I shouldn't say medications. Robert Whitaker calls them chemicals. That's what they are. So they've even bypassed the doctors and got people to think that they can get to solve some social problems. And it's very dangerous for that to happen. And I want to give a shout out to Cindi Fisher. We were at the United Nations a few years back. And I remember quite vividly working through the night because we had different times going on, and her canary in the coal mine. And that's what's happening to a lot of our people. They're canaries in the coal mine. And we can't do this by ourselves. We have to, I shouldn't say have to, but we will work much better when we form coalitions with other groups like our state independent living councils or National Council for Independent Living. And because we just cannot do it by ourselves. It's too huge of a task. Even on our committee, we need more people. Every month, there's some new law that's being passed by Congress that might affect our people adversely. And it's kind of difficult because sometimes these laws can sneak up on you. The titles of them, sometimes they seem like they're of help, but if you dig down in them, you'll find that maybe, for example, one of the very pet things to do now is, I call it giving too much help. They'll say for a young person, they want to make sure they get the care, like the title of the movie, I Care Too Much. Mm-hmm. And so there are different bills that target young people, saying that, we're looking for people that might need help with mental health or behavioral health problems, but it's really to target them. And so they're numerous, they're voluminous. And sometimes when we think some of these bills are dead, what happens, they resurface in another form. So all groups can't do this. What MindFreedom does with the MindFreedom Shield is so important. And I'm so happy that some of the state independent living councils are going to be the first off on that. And what I have to say is too, in your individual states, go to organizations that are for other disabilities, because sometimes they don't understand about the invisible disability, even though people that have a physical disability, more often than not, half of those people also have a mental health history. So there's plenty of work to be done, researching bills, also becoming members of these different organizations. The National Council of Independent Living, the only requirement to be on our mental health committee is that you're a member of the National Council of Independent Living, and the membership dues is only $35. However, if you can't afford it, you can call the office and talk to the executive director and tell them what you can afford, whether it's $25 or $5, and you can become a member. There's 15 different committees, and this way we can be organized, because we also have staff within the National Council of Independent Living who are, monitoring and keeping up with what's happening on the Hill.
Can I ask you a question?
Yvonne, can I ask you a question?
I've known you for decades.
Okay.
I've known you for decades,
And you keep on going on.
and you keep on going on.
Nothing stops you.
Nothing stops you.
Can you share one or two secrets with our viewers? What motivates you, my
Can you
friend?
share one or two secrets with our viewers? What motivates you, my friend?
Well, one of the things that motivates me, I live in the bedroom of St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And years ago, when I was in recovery myself, I got on a committee that was redesigning our mental health system. So I hadn't gone up to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. My experience had been in a private hospital. And what happened was I learned about the Haldol Shuffle.
Oh,
And for those who don't know what that is,
he said I had that.
yes, I know. And during that time, I met you in Long Beach in 1998. And so I saw people that were getting too much help. So that help they were getting, those chemicals of Haldol, were crippling them. People had tardive kinesia. I thought it was some developmental disability because I hadn't seen people like that. So that was one of the things that motivated me. And then I met Mary Ellen Copeland and realized that there were other alternatives to the chemicals that they had. I had taken those chemicals too, and I gained a whole bunch of weight. And I'm telling you, it's hard taking it off, and the side effects are great. And you don't need them. You don't need them. And so that motivates me.
I have another question.
He has another question.
Because of my disabilities, it's obvious I'm connected to the disability movement.
Because of my obvious disabilities, it's obvious I'm connecting to the disability movement.
But I have fought labels from psychiatry like schizophrenia and so on.
But I've fought labels from, what was it?
Psychiatrists.
I've fought labels from psychiatrists
Like
like
say-
schizophrenia.
Me too.
So
What do you tell folks? It's like, I'm not disabled, not part of the disability movement.
So what do
I'm against my label.
So what do you tell folks that say, I'm not part of the disability movement, I'm against labels?
Right. I mean, they're part of us. I understand rejecting the label. I've not done it.
I mean, they're part of us. I understand rejecting labels. I've done that.
But what do you say to them?
But what do you say to them?
Well, people may not identify that as being a person with a disability, they may identify as being a survivor, which is a term before even I came on the scene. Psychiatric survivor, you know, and we are, even if we don't think that we have a disability. I don't cling to a disability label anymore either. But that's what it is, that even if you don't, other people may see you as that. And I think it's rather healthy for people not to cling to those labels. But the thing about it is the impact of different things that affect that group affect you. And so that's what people need to know. A lot of people have had the experience where they went into the mental health or the substance abuse system, and then they left, and they don't claim it, and they don't even recognize it as now. But what happens? They still have that record in their charts somewhere. People can pull out and use them. So it's like being Black. I can say that race doesn't matter, but other people still see me as a Black woman, and they will use that their glittered hole to deny me my rights. And the same thing with people with invisible disabilities, that occurs as well. So you may not think that you're part of us, but you are.
Yvonne, you've nailed it.
Well, Yvonne, you've nailed it.
I mean, I'm struggling with this for months. Thank you.
I mean, I've struggled with this for months. Thank you.
And thank you. And speaking of intersectionality,
And speaking of intersectionality,
this next panelist, my new friend,
and this next panelist, my new friend,
an amazing survivor,
an amazing survivor,
lawyer,
MBA.
Now, I want to welcome you warmly, Wilda White.
And I want to welcome you warmly, Wilda White.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Now, by the way, folks, and a couple more speakers, we're doing Q&A. So at the bottom of your panel, you see Q&A.
So we'll have a few more speakers also, everybody. So notice at the bottom, there's a Q&A button.
Yeah, we're not answering chat, answering questions.
We're not answering chat, we're answering questions.
And Q&A.
And Q&A.
So put your questions in Q&A.
So put your questions in Q&A.
Welcome, Wilda.
Welcome, Wilda.
Thank you, David, and thank you all the people who've spoken before me. It's been really interesting and informative and inspirational. My name is Wilda White, and I live in Poultney, Vermont, in the United States. And I am most recently the founder of an organization called MadFreedom, which it has not had a hard launch yet, but is an organization that I'm starting in order to address what I think is kind of a gap in our movement. I think much of our advocacy focuses on changing the mental health system or trying to get alternatives to that system. And so I think a lot of areas that we're oppressed go uncontested. And so MadFreedom's goal is or mission is to secure political power and influence in order to end the discrimination and oppression of people based on their perceived mental states. And so what we want to do is, change that, the dialogue, the narrative about people with mental, labeled with mental illnesses, challenge. I feel like by just focusing on the mental health system, we really limit who we are. We don't contest. I don't think we're projecting ourselves as whole people, and we're not addressing things like discrimination in housing and employment, and just how normalized it is to put us down continuously through using the word crazy, psycho. These are just so normalized in our society, and we haven't contested that. And that's just a small example. One project that I'll be working on coming in the near future is trying to assemble a group of lawyers across the United States to think of a long-term legal strategy to overturn the laws that make it permissible to force drug us and force incarcerate us. I see the challenge of changing these laws, just like the challenge of changing the separate but equal law. You know, the Supreme Court decision in Plessy versus Ferguson that legalized race discrimination for so many decades in this country. And then it was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. I see assembling this group of lawyers to do the same, to do a long-term strategy to figure out how to change the laws and make it out, you know, to make this not okay as part of the work we're going to do. And so I'll stop there. I think I want to leave time for other people to talk, but that's kind of what I'm doing these days, is trying to get this organization MadFreedom off the ground, which I want to be national in scope in order to secure political power, so that the things that we've been talking about here today, we actually have the power and influence to make happen.
Well, I love the focus on the whole society.
Well, I love the focus on the whole society.
Talk about intersectionality.
We'll talk about intersectionality. Wow.
Now, tell me something, one or two things you think might help motivate folks to provide tools for action.
So could you mention one or two tools you think might help motivate people to take action?
Tools for action.
Tools for action.
I'm not 100% sure I understand that question, mostly because I feel like Cindi Fisher talked about, I cannot help but take action. I think living in this world on the margin, you know, in a world that prefers men to women, prefers white to black, prefers, you know, straight to gay, that prefers, you know, similarly abled versus differently abled, all of that prefers sanity over humanity. All of that inspires me to act. And the only tool I need to act is, you know, knowledge of oppression and injustice. I think of myself, I identify as a freedom fighter. And I do this work I do because it's the way I stay healthy. It's the way I stay physically healthy. It's the way I stay mentally healthy. If I had to live in this world and didn't fight back, I would not be well. I would be, I just wouldn't be well, and I wouldn't be happy. And I'm very happy despite living on the margins of a world that does not value me, because every day I get up, the thing I do is work on fighting for freedom for people who don't have it.
Yeah, Wilda will be our guest for MindFreedom Oregon.
Wilda will be our guest for MindFreedom Oregon.
We'll email on the first Friday in September.
We'll email out first Friday in September.
Thank you, Wilda.
Thank you, Wilda.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Wilda, the next one speaker is also an attorney.
The next one person is also an attorney.
And a friend with a Harvard connection.
And a friend with a Harvard connection too.
Like you.
Like you.
So Jim's a psychiatric survivor.
Jim's a psychiatric survivor.
Author. And friend. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an inspiration to listen to everybody. And Wilda, I certainly value you. And I did a little looking about, and you're doing amazing things. And it's interesting. You've got this really broad scope with MadFreedom and Psych Rights, Law Project for Psychiatric Rights, which I founded and kind of still work at. Has a very specific couple of focuses or foci, I guess, which is to mount a strategic litigation campaign against forced psychiatric drugging and electroshock, and also to educate the public about basically the harms and the counterproductive nature of the current mental health system. And I think that those two things, along with providing alternatives, is the way they can work synergistically to change the mental health system. So I'm Psych Rights is in Anchorage, but these days I'm spending a lot of time on Maui, which is an example of how lucky I am, which is one of the things I think that has characterized my life, even though I was psychiatrically imprisoned for 30 days.
So, Jim, can you share one or two tools to help our viewers want to be more active?
So Jim, could you share one or two tools that would help our viewers to be more active?
Who want to be more?
Who want to be more active, yeah.
Well, I'm a huge supporter of the MindFreedom Shield program, which is this kind of mutual aid society where if you sign up to be a member of the Shield, basically it's to say if you're ever threatened or subjected to forced psychiatry, that everybody will come to, come to your support, and if an alert goes out for someone else, you agree to go and support that person. And I think that's a hugely valuable thing on a couple of levels. One, of course, MindFreedom's had quite a bit of success in freeing people from forced psychiatry, forced electroshock, forced drugging, et cetera. Not always, but quite a few times. And so obviously being able to help, any one person is hugely important. And the other thing is that it gives the opportunity to bring these issues to the fore, and people just don't, the general public just does not know what's going on. And it's so important for everyone, I think, to do whatever they can to bring this information to the public. So I kind of have this policy of accepting every speaking invitation that I can to try and educate the public.
Jim, tell us something from your story that helps, like, motivate you from your past, like that really helps encourage your incredible action.
Thank you. Well, David, you're the biggest inspiration of all. Well, for me, there are a couple of really seminal events. One was in 1982. I got in a situation where I didn't sleep, and personally, I like the word crazy, rather than psychotic. But anyway, anybody who doesn't get sleep long enough will, enter an altered state, and I don't have a lot of tolerance for that. So I ended up jumping out of my dad's second floor bedroom window in my underwear at 1 a.m. and in the middle of June, which it's light, of course, in Anchorage, and was hauled off to the psych hospital and told that I would never, that I would be, quote, mentally ill for the rest of my life. Those that believed I was a lawyer said I'd never do that again. And, when I told them I was from Harvard Law School, that confirmed that I was delusional. And so that before that, I was just, on this track to become kind of a corporate lawyer and all that kind of stuff. And it really changed my life to a direction to one of advocacy. And I again, I was lucky not to have been made permanently mentally ill, and it was because I had this psychiatrist, Robert Alberts, who said, you know, you just have to, and that could happen to anybody, and you just have to learn how to deal with it. So, and then the other thing, I did things in Alaska. I won't necessarily go into them, but I founded Mental Health Consumers of Alaska and the Alaska Mental Health Consumer Web. Did things, but didn't really think I had much to contribute more broadly. And then I read Mad in America by Robert Whitaker. And it's a really terrific book. Of course, he later wrote Anatomy of an Epidemic, but Mad in America was the one that inspired me. And because not only was it a really good read, but to me, it was a litigation roadmap for how to challenge forced drugging, not just based on, you know, the civil rights aspect of it, but that you could really go in and prove that it's not in people's best interests. So I'd say those are the two things.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. And what an incredible supporter of MindFreedom.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. And what an incredible supportive MindFreedom.
Yeah, certainly being friends with you and others that's been one of the biggest rewards.
And certainly being friends with you and others has been one of the biggest rewards.
Now, before we go on to the next speaker, I have a little slide about 3 ways you can connect with MindFreedom.
So before we go into the next speaker, I have a little slide with 3 ways you can become more active with MindFreedom. MindFreedom.
Now, first, like Jim, if you're with a group, they can be a sponsor.
Now, first, like Jim, if you're with the group, you can become a sponsor.
A sponsor is an independent group that basically endorses MindFreedom.
A sponsor? A sponsor is a group that basically endorses MindFreedom.
Like Psych Rights.
Like Psych Rights.
Or NARPA. Or Bassman Center.
Or the Bassman Center.
And I hope soon MadFreedom.
And I hope soon MadFreedom.
Mad Pride Soul is newest sponsor.
Mad Pride Soul is our newest sponsor.
Second is affiliate.
Second is affiliates.
I'm with MindFreedom Oregon.
I'm with MindFreedom Oregon.
These are regional groups that use the MindFreedom name.
These are regional groups that use the MindFreedom name.
And now we're opening, just contact me and we'll help you.
And now we're opening up. Just contact me and we'll help you.
Like MindFreedom Portland.
Like MindFreedom Portland.
Now, if these together we're in a support coalition. We're in a support coalition.
We're in a support coalition.
Together. I'd like to introduce a third way to connect.
I'd like to introduce a third way to connect.
For a while, I talked to Ron and Sarah about this.
I talked to Ron and Sarah about this.
That is a campaign action team.
That is a campaign action team.
Like if your group, your network wants to support, say the MindFreedom Shield.
Like say if your network or group wants to support the MindFreedom Shield.
Or you want to focus on fighting electroshock.
Or you want to focus on fighting electroshock.
Or racism.
Or racism.
Or like if I'm a Unitarian, maybe you're in a church group.
Or maybe like I'm a Unitarian, so maybe if you're in a church group.
So now there are 3 ways.
So now there's 3 ways.
And campaign action team has a great name, CAT.
And campaign action team has a great name, CAT.
So after this webinar, you'll get a survey.
So after this webinar, you'll get a survey.
And then you can express your interest.
And then you can express your interest.
First, we have a poll though. Can you show the poll in?
First, we have a poll though. Can you show the
And
poll,
by the
Ian?
way, thank you, Ian,
And-
for doing that work.
And by the way, Ian, thank you for doing tech work.
So you need to click panelists
Oh.
so they can vote.
Ian, you need to click panelists so they can see it also,
They can vote.
so they can vote.
That's a box before here.
That's the box before
Oh,
here.
well, anyway, folks, just click as many boxes as you like,
So people just to click as many boxes as you like,
and we'll have a quick poll.
and we'll have a quick poll.
You should be able to see it.
We should be able to see it.
Your poll box disappeared.
Your poll box disappeared, Brian.
Oh, you know, we're new to polls.
So we're new to
You
polls.
know what? Let's go on to our next speaker. Ian,
So let's just go on to our next speaker, Ian.
who was, forget the poll.
So forget the poll.
There's a real live human being we want to introduce.
So there's a real life human being we want to introduce.
Yeah, he's been a hero for me for years.
He's been a hero to me for years.
He helped marry Deborah and me,
He helped marry David and me,
a minister.
a minister.
I call him the Mad Movement Minister.
He calls him the Mad Movement Minister.
Welcome, Phillip Schulman, Reverend Phillip Schulman.
Welcome, Reverend Phillip Schulman.
Hi, Rev.
Hi, Rev, you're muted.
right now.
You're muted right now.
You're muted.
You're muted, Phillip.
Yeah, I had the poll stuck in front of me. I couldn't do anything. You got me?
Aw.
I couldn't get rid of it.
Sorry about that.
Couldn't
Sorry
answer.
about that.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Whew. Hi.
So tell us about your new job.
So tell us about your new job.
I don't have one, but I know what you're talking about, and I will tell you. But I know time is long. I'll quickly as I can. I wrote some things I can get them out there. But
Right,
Go ahead, Phillip.
I got another poll. I'll close. Okay. So, but I'm intersectional disability as well. Briefly, David knows and Deborah knows that I was hit by a truck and my skull collapsed, and my perspective and my abilities are different. I've definitely had a period where my disabilities were glaring. They're now more or less invisible, and I'm still learning a lot. I'll just beginning on that. But David, decades ago, has been coaching on me on intersectionality and cross disability organizing. So, but it's a kind of miracle. I was trained as a Unitarian Universalist minister. I've served 4 congregations, and I thought it was done because of the accident. And I've been guest minister for congregation lately, so I'm excited about. And then that might go further. Yeah, that's not me. Okay, so I don't know what's happening.
So
I'm going to say,
maybe
I think
you
that
could share a tool or do that can help people.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
here's what I got. Yes, that's with that in mind. Actually, I don't know, but I hope that would be most useful to inspire just to say the fun I have and the fortune I have had to be part of this movement for a long time, more than 3 decades. And so a few highlights of what I've done, and it's not though done such great things, but the sample is smorgasbord. Started off leading and assisting mental health system survivors empowerment workshops. I worked at the Clearinghouse for Human Rights and Psychiatry in a tiny little office. Is David Oakes, one of my heroes, because put out Daeryun magazine back when I didn't hear anybody else challenging the system the way he did, and getting to work there, which later I volunteered and worked at Support Coalition International, which became MindFreedom, and worked there too. And I had the privilege of being a clerk for the Mad Market. That meant packing and shipping books. Lots of little tasks like this that I'm so grateful for. Protests in San Francisco and New York City of the APA, American Psychiatric Association. I formed an organization called Advocates for Amenity, and I had the privilege of contacting electric shock survivors to testify before the Texas legislature. That previous campaign got a ban on electric shock therapy, on the use of it on children. I have staffed MindFreedom tables at conferences all over the place, staffing the table, talking to people in this movement, talking to consumers or survivors, ex-inmates, etc. No other kinds of protests all over. Mad Pride celebrations in Oregon and upstate New York. I've got the honor, I didn't deserve it to do a great job, but I was on NARPA, National Association Rights and Protection Advocacy. That's back in the 90s, I think. This whole time in chronological. For years, I campaigned to be allowed to be chaplain at the Alternatives Conference, and eventually I was allowed, because spirituality is a right and a tool and a support that is denied and pushed out of the mental health system. So I was a chaplain at our Alternatives Conference. David mentioned Mad Movement Ministry, advocating for access to the religious and spiritual supports of each person's choice, including zero. Your choice in this matter is it's all about that. Just a couple more. I worked in this and recruited and supported mental health consumers to teach classes and organize events at the Fellowship Club in Santa Barbara. And then I got a better job. I got to be the director of the Crisis Alternative Services, one of the early respite programs. I don't really like the term respite, really, to tell you the truth. It doesn't convey to the general public what we're doing, this peer support communities as this resource. It's a different model, as you know, and it's right on. So the other 2 things I've done is that I want to mention, because see, all this is why inspiration? Why do it? Because it's meaningful. So relationships with Mad Movement leaders, so many I could. There's time you can ask me. People, knowing people that are in this panel, and knowing people over the years that giving their life. I've been a punk, a puny little person that got the privilege to show up once in a while and fold chairs and pick up keynotes from airports, etc., anything and everything. And it's because it's nice to be on this panel, but getting your face up there, it's not what it's all about. And it's about when there's an organizer says, like, oh, I forgot her name now, who said, this is what I'm organizing. Will you be willing to X? And if you can, you say, sign me up. And that's what I've done. And I'm grateful.
And Phillip, I'm so grateful you're my friend.
And Phillip, I'm so grateful you're my friend.
So we do, if anybody has questions for any of the panelists, please send them into Q&A.
So if anybody has questions for the panelists, please send them into the Q&A.
But I have one for all or any of the panelists.
So I have one for all or any of the panelists.
Or anything you wanted to add, any of you?
Is there anything you wanted to add, any of you? Briefly.
Yeah, any of the panelists.
Any of the panelists?
Want to add anything?
Do you want to add anything briefly?
Yes.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
I put it in the chat, but I wanted to add that because of the MindFreedom Shield, is to sort of like know your community buttons. Know the newspaper, know reporters that cover not just mental health, but cover crime. Become their friends. Become the go-to person. So when somebody needs the shield in your area, or something happens, that you will already have the connection for the press. I had asked the question, but also for the church. I'm not a church goer, but in some of these instances, if you have a large, like a Catholic denomination, whatever, find out who the human rights person is, so that when something happens, you're not just showing up, that you know people that can help. Because all of this is about a leverage. So sometimes there might be just a few of us, but other people can take on the plight because it affects them as well. So get to know press, get to know religious leaders, get to know your state bar, whether they have pro bono and how that works. Get to look at a government tracker. That's a free online thing that you can query and say mental health. The biggest thing for me, for my committee, is sometimes we need people who just can be on the computer and just look at things, and just because things sneak up on us. You know, even in your state, there might be some law, something that gets changed. You need that person who is not good speaking, but they're great on the computer. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Yvonne. I wanted to say, talking about sneaking up, it's because of what happened to my son, who helped block the discharge. And it turned out that in the name of meeting the community's need, my city, Vancouver, is the chosen site for the DSHS, which is over the hospital that's been so corrupt. They are citing a campus of 3 community mental health psychiatric prisons is what I call them. They're calling them hospitals. I think hospitals are the hidden prisons in plain sight. And so it would be basically a total of 48 beds that hardly anybody knows about. And so that's one of the campaigns that I'm going to be to people. But also my 2-Minute Tuesday, my son is still locked up. And if you come, there's an action that you can take on Tuesdays, the day I stand in front of the Capitol and the hospital. And just with a click of an email, you can email all, one click, you can email all of the Washington state senators and the legislatures. Or if you want to call, you can call the head of a very powerful committee. So that's how I'm trying to keep ongoing pressure, which I will say, with the Mind Shield, there were 416 hits in one day on my website. And if just half of those people or a fourth of those people called or did something, that's 100 people. And also following up that there's about 100 a day when I go up on Tuesday. So I have heard since all this happened from the top admin, clearly there's something being shaken in the background, and I'm expecting to hear something within the next week about getting an actual. The only thing that will stop me is an actual discharge date within a very close time period. Otherwise, and even after that, I'm going to continue, but in a different way, to stop the hidden prisons in plain sight.
I'd like to make an announcement while people are still here. And I believe Roxanne is here, who has done an inspiring documentary, and we're going to be showing it on September 1st. And I think you're still on, Celia. You're going to be one of the panelists if you accept.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Ron. I'm excited.
Okay. And it's what somebody can do on their own. And I would encourage you to, it's going to be 6 to 8:30 Eastern time. And we'll be sending out flyers and everybody here will get it. And guess what, Sarah? You're going to have a flyer to do. I know you got so much to do, but I'll help with that. And really looking forward to it. We're going to have some different organizations which will be promoting it, and we've increased our number of people who will who will be eligible for it. Hopefully we'll get about 300. I would strongly encourage you to see what advocacy can do, self-advocacy. I saw your name on here, Roxanne. I don't know if you're still on though, but again, think about putting that date down to come to this event.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Any other panelists?
Any other panelists?
So I'd like to thank everybody.
I'd like to thank everybody.
And I'd like to thank my miracle of a wife,
He'd like to thank me, Deborah.
Shamanko,
And Bongo.
the muffler, and even Bongo.
And even Bongo.
So, and I'd like to thank all the panelists.
I'd like to thank all the panelists.
And all the folks observing.
And all the folks observing.
And thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Ian.
And please consider sponsor, affiliate, or campaign action.
So please consider sponsor, affiliate, or campaign action team.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
And
Thank you. Thank you, David, Deborah, and Ian for putting this together and running it so smoothly.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian.
You did great.
You did great.
You can end the ended
There were
now.
some questions, though.
Thanks, David. It was terrific.